Hello and welcome to session 54 of my Pillars of Eternity Lorethrough. This will be the final session of the main game of Pillars of Eternity. Thaos has been defeated. We have destroyed the memories that linger in his soul, so he won't be able to awaken the same way that he has awakened in all of his previous lives. And we have a lot to do before we actually finish still, though. We have Kana leveled up, and then everybody wants to speak to us. I don't know if they're going to be long conversations or not, but let's level up Kana first, and then we will see what everybody has to say. You can see here that the fight didn't go well. I'm sure if you watched the previous session, then you know it took me 4, maybe 5 tries. And I believe Kana was the only one still standing at the end of all that. But we did do it. So let's level up Kana first, and then we'll get to talking to our companions. For Kana, I moved his athletics up 1. I gave him the invocation that requires 6 phrases chanted to summon a swamp spore to fight for the chanter. What Raunaka found down in the deep is the name of the invocation. And for his talents, I gave him marksman, which increases the character's accuracy with a ranged weapon used on different distant targets. All right, let's go down the line here. Talk to Adair. Oh.
Thaos. He had hold of your soul from a long time back, seems like. You get what you needed from him?
I got an answer to an old question.
Those can be hard to come by. I feel for people still looking for theirs. Easy to see what it means to them to have someone to look to for answers. You'll be feeling better soon then. Good. That's real good. You got it figured out what you're going to do about all that?
Not yet.
Got a lot of people out there thinking they've been abandoned by their gods. There's not much that'll put the fear in you more than that. You can take my word for it.
When he asked that question, he was looking at the machine, by the way. So what am I going to do with all these souls, basically, is what he was asking us.
If it was in my power, and I know it's not, but if it was, I'd send every last one of those souls right back where they were supposed to go in the first place. So folks could get back to believing what they used to. After what you've been through, though, I'm sure you got your own ideas. Better make it good.
He winks. So he would have preferred to do what Hylia wants us to do. Durance next.
Ah, the end of the road greets us at last. You fared well, Watcher. Better than any Watcher has right to. Seems you were a field in need of a flame's cleansing. Would that my own trial had produced such an outcome. I had figured myself for the field all this time. But you were the field, and I the darkness. A lesson neither of Durance nor of Margarin. But with that trial's end, a new one begins. A god's trial. And I will stand in judgment without mercy.
Doesn't ask us. Just letting him know. Kana next.
We've come to the end of it, my friend. It has been an honor to walk this road with you, and I will regret our parting.
All the hard-won lessons we have survived, I will carry back with me to Rawatai. I'll try to do justice by your story. It's both stranger and more exciting than anything I could have conjured up. Kana studies you for a moment, then smiles. Victory agrees with you, Bearter. You look as if a great weight has been lifted from your shoulders. I am glad for it. Aloth?
Astounding. I always knew the Leaden Key stood for something big, but I didn't quite realize what I'd gotten myself into. And now, you're in the middle of something even bigger. The decision that will affect millions. But even if you send the souls somewhere specific now, who knows what the next turn of the wheel will make of them? We can't really control what happens to them. Nor should we try. I had to see the monster Thaos had become to realize that.
Maybe so.
It's your decision, of course. And whatever you decide, I'm glad our paths crossed in Gilded Vale.
I think he wants to do what I'm planning on doing, which is returning the souls to the wheel. That's what it sounded like to me. Because he's saying he doesn't know what'll happen, but maybe that's the point, that we don't need to control it. Finally, Sagani.
Never thought I'd see something like this in my travels. Lends a little perspective, doesn't it? To think, the decisions the Angwithans made thousands of years ago still shape our lives today. It would be a shame to deny these souls the chance to find their own way and their own purpose.
Thank you for traveling with me.
I'd probably still be twiddling my thumbs by the side of the road if you hadn't come along. Thanks for bringing us this far.
Okay, that's everybody.
Gores.
Actually, let's take a quick rest down here. I don't know if there's any more combat, but if there is, then I don't want to be caught with a bunch of tired, burning people. Okay. So some of the souls came back here. Just wanted to, no, it doesn't look like we can actually see anybody or anything. Okay. Everyone ready? It's time to decide what to do with the souls. We got this spinning wheel here with 3 circles. As you approach the machine, the path underfoot suddenly changes to a cobbled road. If you hadn't experienced visions like this already in Ter Everen, you'd be tempted to believe that the machine had sucked you into it and deposited you in the middle of nowhere. The sun blazes overhead, and the rolling meadows and the thick forests on either side of the road could be anywhere in the Dyrwood. A shrill cackle turns your head. Skane. Standing next to you is a malnourished man clad in threadbare loincloth and manacles. His entire body is striped with lash marks, and there are scarred pits where his nose and ears should be. He stinks of stale sweat and unwashed filth. You notice someone wandering down the road, but the figure's back is to you. The scarred slave has your attention for now. I feel like unwashed filth is a little bit redundant.
You know something of quiet servitude, Watcher. Groveling and simpering before the gods whose aid you need, so that when they finally raise you to a place of power, you can seize what you desire. You have labored at the pleasure of others. That shriveled hag in Hadrit House, those preening soldiers with more taste for silk than steel, the wretched tribesmen playing out their fantasies of grandeur. And then you cowered and knelt before the gods themselves, begging one paltry favor and receiving riddles and visions in response. And now the gods give you orders and commands, even while you set out to fix what they cannot. Yet what have they offered you?
So Skane, in a very Skane-like manner, wants us to defy the will of the powerful, the gods. A suspicious grimace crosses Aloth's face. I get the feeling this is his way of giving you new orders on behalf of his own master. Be careful, Bjarter. Given the breadth of the iron manacle, it's amazing that he can raise his bone-thin arm. But he does. And he points to the person walking the other way along the road.
The exiled queen is not an ungrateful patron.
So has Skane been working with Woodica this whole time? You get a better look at the lone figure and realize that she's wearing robes, tattered and singed, but fine nonetheless. On her head is the silhouette of a broken crown. She continues walking, her pace slow but determined.
Finish the work Thaos began. Strengthen Woodica with these souls and allow her to become the most powerful of all the gods, with you as her favored.
That doesn't seem very Skane-like. What do you mean by her favored? Actually, I'm going to say helping Woodica would mean that the secrets of the gods stay hidden. He rubs his hands together, his black eyes gleaming. Safely hidden, yes. From the violent overlords who would cease to fear punishment in the next life. From the heavy-handed masters who would answer to no one. The world needs some schemes. Or are the souls of Kith so pure that you would snap the tenuous threads that bind society? Have caution, Beater, says Kana. All schemers desire an ignorant multitude. Kana's shoulders are set in a straight line, his expression grim. What they fear most is that we should know enough not to be content in our places. What do you mean by her favored? The recipient of Whitaker's blessings. She has always had a place for mortals of particular merit. If you help her now, she will become the most powerful of all the gods, and you will be the one who made her so. Think of the lifetimes of reward you would reap. So I think he wants us to become the next Thaos. The only reward I wish is the joy of pulling bloody shards of her broken crown from my staff when I have finished with her trial, says Durrance. Skane turns his flinty eyes on Durrance. So says your companion, who's been abandoned by his own god. Do you really trust him to make alliances for you? I've been working against Whitaker this whole time. Why would she thank me now after I've defeated her most loyal servant? The ragged hole in Skane's face wrinkles in disgust. Loyal and weak. Thaos proved his inadequacy when he failed to anticipate you. A plan exposed is worse than none at all. But you have proven resourceful, equal to the schemes of the gods. Whitaker has a long memory, Watcher, for both friends and foes. And she keeps her oaths. Skane takes a bundle at his feet and hefts the burden onto his back. I've explained the alternative, Watcher. Continue as a pawn of the gods, or a partner of one. At the other end of the road, the figure stops. She turns her head just enough to look over her shoulder. Her face is mostly hidden, but one merciless eye peers at you from a cheek of rippled, scorned flesh. I won't help you.
You say that now, but when you're standing in front of the machine, considering the lifetimes and the powers that await you, we'll see what you do.
He continues down the road, and when the sun suddenly drops below the horizon, it plunges you into momentary darkness. You come to see your senses in front of the machine. All these evils we've seen, going all the way back to the Saints' War, that was all Whitaker. Imagine if she was stronger on top of it all. The machine resonates with the energy of 1,000 souls. Standing near it makes your head spin. It's thousands of souls, not 1,000. So we have this huge Adra pillar here that moves down into the soul, and we see the souls circling it. And here is where we make our decision. With your companions bearing witness, you step up to the place where Thaos once stood before his people long ago. The great machine lies in front of you, idle, ready. As you have seen this machine and others like it in operation, you understand how it works. It is a device for directing souls. As a watcher, it would be a simple matter to influence that direction, though as big as the machine is, it may be the last thing you ever do. Speak the commands to activate the machine. There is a shrieking of stone grinding against stone as old cogs loosen and begin to turn. You have only moments before the souls will be sent into the Adra vein. This will be your only chance at redirecting them. So our choices are to send the souls back into the reincarnation cycle. That's what Bareth wanted us to do. Return the souls to the bodies they were intended for. That's what Hylia wanted us to do. Entropically disintegrate the souls, ending their existence. That's what Remergond... Well, at the time it was Remergond, Skane, and Andra, but I think it's only actually Remergond and Andra that want us to do this now because of what Skane just said to us. Distribute the essence to existing souls in Dyrwood to strengthen them. That would be what Galawain wants us to do. And finally, allow the souls to pass through the vein to Whitaker, and that's what Whitaker and Skane would want us to do. Disperse the souls to an unknown location. That's what Wall would want us to do. I am going to send the souls back into the reincarnation cycle. You close your eyes and expand your perception outward, taking in the immense totality of the tens of thousands of souls orbiting the chamber. Your grasp on souls is tenuous. You find yourself fighting to keep them all within your influence, and you can feel them slipping away from you as the machine gains speed. A brief moment comes when it feels as though you hold all of them at once, and their force is so great, It feels as though they will tear you apart. In that moment, you dedicate your entire being to bending their orbit, channeling their flow in a new direction.
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale, pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Thaos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Thaos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Dyrwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the lost souls of the Hollowborn were funneled back into the churn of Bareth's wheel to find their way into new vessels and partake in the life they had been denied during Whitewind's legacy. Though parents of Hollowborn would remain just that, the end of Whitewind's legacy would bring about a spate of new, healthy births, with many of the infants bearing souls once meant for Hollowborn children. The natural cycle of life and death had been restored to Dyrwood, and with it came a renewed faith in the providence of the gods. Though you had killed Lord Radric in his throne room, so strong was his drive to rid his land of Eothasians that he returned to life as a death guard, a deathless crusader for his brutal cause. With the remains of his humanity stripped away, Radric came to see all the people of Gilded Vale as worshippers of Eothas, and one day he led his forces into the village personally to see them all purged from his lands. Gilded Vale was left a hollow shell, its buildings ruined, and its people slaughtered. Even travelers and would-be squatters knew better than to take refuge inside its borders. Lord Radric returned to Radric's Hold, where he remained, keeping eternal watch over his barren domain. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But order was soon re-established by the Knights of the Crucible, who, despite their depleted numbers, had gained favor in the public eye for their role in the unraveling of the conspiracy surrounding Whitewind's legacy, and were quickly reinforced by returning forces from Fleetbreaker Castle. For the Knights, their resurgence marked a return to the tradition as well. Having seen firsthand the dangers presented by dabblers in animancy, the Order quickly abolished the practice internally, preferring the familiarity of their hammers and forges to the uncertainties of Essence and Adra. Their identity rediscovered, the Knights suppressed their political aspirations and began once again to train their recruits in the art of blacksmithing, recapturing the post-revolutionary ideals of Dyrwood and regaining the respect of its citizens as a result. The destruction of the machine atop Ter Noaneth spelled the end of the reanimated corpses in Heritage Hill. Though at first few were willing to venture into the abandoned district, it was soon cleaned out and rebuilt. The district's horrors still fresh in people's minds, it would be some time before it was fully repopulated. But eventually the lure of cheap prime land would all but erase the memory. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an Animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay, and few Animancers survived the first day. Many Dyrwoodans took the end of Whitewind's legacy as a sign, both that the gods did not approve of animancy, and that the purging of Animancers in Defiance Bay had been enough to satisfy them. In time, their rage would subside, and a number of surviving Animancers remained in and around Defiance Bay, often taking to the wilds to practice their science without repercussions. The town of Deerford had seen the last of the cult of Scan. Dark rumors about the town's many curses quickly faded, and travelers soon returned. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Dyrwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Dyrwoodinians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Dyrwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. Pallegina had missed the opportunity to complete her mission from the Duke's Bells. The Dyrwood's trade with Air Glanfath remained weak, but the Valian republics were unable to enter Glenfathan markets. For her repeated insubordination and loss of lucrative trade, Pallegina was cast out of the Brotherhood of Five Suns. She traveled north of the Eastern Reach, where she tried to avoid trouble as a caravan guard, but she could not escape the strange looks and unwanted attention her appearance brought. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Through a number of quiet inquiries, he soon found his way into the underground organization of Aethasians known as the Night Market. Ironically, in learning that the gods had been fabricated, Adair found his faith in Aethus renewed, and that his god was neither alive nor truly a god had become irrelevant. He rose quickly through the ranks of the Night Market for his optimism and for his bold leadership, his ultimate goal to make the Dyrwood a place that would welcome followers of the Shining God once again. When the dust settled in Sun and Shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Thaos Exarchanon, his former master. He saw where the Grand Master had gone wrong and what would be required to undo the harm Thaos had wrought. With a flick of his wrist, he burned Thaos's robe, headdress, and every other symbol of the man's power. Never again, he vowed, should Kith live in fear and blind obedience to an authority they did not understand. Armed with the knowledge and courage he had gained on his journeys with the Watcher, he set out on the long and lonely task of dismantling the Leaden Key. With both their aims fulfilled, Kanarua bid the Watcher farewell and sailed back to his beloved Rawatai. There, he reported on his findings to the Lore College. Kana spoke of the Engwithan people, describing both their vile experiments and their inspiring accomplishments. He spoke too of the destruction of the tablet by the Leaden Key, and the group's efforts to erase the Engwithan legacy from the world. Both inspiration and cautionary tales, he said, could be found in the world beyond Rawatai's borders. Kana urged his people to continue to pursue knowledge abroad so that the lessons found there might benefit Tekoa. Kana's inability to prove his theory of Engwithan influence diminished his academic standing, but his passion drew much interest from those less concerned with degrees. Kana swiftly became an influential figure in the move toward a more collaborative approach to expansion on the northern continent. In his personal life, he came to enjoy the reputation of an affable eccentric, willing to share grand and impossible secrets, along with a drink and a song. With Thaos defeated and the souls released from Sun and Shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Dyrwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Dyrford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Dyrwood and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Thaos had been cast from the world, and then swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He continued to wander, penniless and destitute, searching now not for the reason for his goddess's silence, but for a mechanism for revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess, and not just by the flames of the Godhammer. Sagani experienced the 4 months of her journey back to Masuk in vivid colors. She strove to memorize every moment of her final trip through the Dyrwood, Air Glanfath, the Valian Republics, and beyond, preparing to tell her village of what she had seen on her long journey. All of Masuk shared in her triumph, and she felt her pride and elation magnified by the joy of her village. Never again did she doubt the value of her sacrifices. After decades as a long hunter, Sagani finally became one of Masuk's most respected elders. She guided her community with wise counsel, and a generation after she finally passed, another huntress journeyed into the world to find her soul. For you, the death of Thaos brought an end to your waking visions and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.
So these slides that have to do with the choices that we made, I always love these. I wish I was paying a little bit more attention to what happened in Gilded Vale. It seemed like Radric, his soul was returned to him, and he like decimated Gilded Vale basically. And I wonder if there was anything I could have done different that would have ended differently for Gilded Vale, because that is very unfortunate what happened there. Everything else is pretty much what I expected. We didn't really hear too much about, we didn't spend too much time with Pallegina. So she was cast out. We didn't hear anything about Harabius, I don't think, in the ending slides. Maybe I just totally missed it, but I don't think we heard anything about him. And Grieving Mother, even though we didn't spend that much time with her, she turned out pretty well. The other ones that we did spend time with seem to have richer lives because of their time with us. So happy that we could do that, all except for Durance, who I'm sorry I didn't get to spend more time with his quiet contemplative side. I would have liked that. So yeah, the souls have been returned. The curse of the Hollowborn is over, thanks to the Watcher. This has been a huge project so far for me. Thank you so much for joining me on this. If you did join me on this, I really appreciate anything, any kind of engagement, whether those are likes or just watching or commenting. When I started to do this, I started to do it because I thought it would be a way for me to get videos out fairly regularly with not as much intensive editing as the other ones were, which would be good with my work schedule. I didn't realize that this would be as exhausting as it was, though. Just kind of thinking about all these things, trying to be interesting in my discussions of them has been pretty intense. But still, I really enjoyed my time doing this. This is just, I believe, my second time actually beating this game. I got pretty late in the game once, but I didn't beat it. And then I actually beat Pillars of Eternity 2, and then went back to Pillars of Eternity 1 and beat it for the first time. Then I did Pillars of Eternity 2 again. So when I go into Pillars of Eternity 2, then I will be beating it for the third time. But for this game, it was just the second time that I went through it, and it is so rich with lore, history, and so much thought was put into even just like monsters and creatures and how they got to be the way they are. The undead are thought of differently in this world. The people who made this really put a lot of thought into how not just the characters interact with the world, but how everything interacts with the world, whether those are enemies, something that we have to kill, whether they are brutes or beasts or whatever they are, everything just feels like it's a part of this world. And reading all of this and trying to discover it on my own makes me appreciate it that much more. So I hope you appreciated that as much as I have. I have enjoyed this journey. I know I'm saying this now like this is going to be the end, but obviously we still have a couple DLC to go through. And then I would love to do Pillars of Eternity Deadfire. which is the second game, and all their DLC, which will be even longer. Not really sure how that's going to look yet. It won't be as much reading from me because everything is fully voice acted, including the narration. So not sure what that's going to look like, but I do plan on doing that at some point. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm rambling a little bit here. But I hope that you enjoyed this journey as much as I did. I appreciate any kind of engagement you guys gave. And I hope that you continue to join me through White March. That was not timed. Look at that. It was pretty good. Through the White March DLCs and into the second game as well. So I'm going to sign off now, breathe a little bit, and then I will be back for the White March DLCs at some point in the future. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate everything, and I hope to see you in future sessions where we explore the White March and the Deadfire Archipelago. Bye, everybody.